morning. Good morning. Thank you, Katrina. Welcome to the September 21st meeting of the Tompkins Intergovernmental Relations Committee. And we appreciate people moving this a week out after the NISAC conference last week. So we understand Michael Lane is coming, but he will be a little bit late today. Katrina, are there any changes to the agenda or public comment?
Nope.
Okay. Thank you very much. Welcome, Lisa. We're glad to have you here. Thank you so very much, and would invite you to share any items that you'd like to update us on. I believe that you and I talked about, in particular, about the NISAG property, Bell Station, and that issue.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, I'd be happy to provide an update on that. And I'm pretty sure everyone on the committee is aware of the situation as it's been discussed before. So since our last legislature meeting, I did reach out to, well, first of all, to Andy Zepp at the Land Trust, who had a meeting with several county staff, including Jay Franklin and Jonathan, Megan McDonald, and myself, to discuss how they were proceeding in terms of advocacy. And the Land Trust's first order of business was to try to advocate on the state level to call off the auction if possible. That's what they would like to do first. So they were talking about various means of doing that, and advocating at the governor's office, the DEC, the PSC, et cetera. Also reached out to our partners at Cornell, Charlie Krasansky, Zoe Nelson, Gary Stewart, who've been really helpful in terms of just making connections at the state level. And since that time, our understanding is that the head of the Public Service Commission, John Howard, has reached out and encouraged NISAG to do the right thing and work with the local community going forward. NISAG has the petitions and is aware of the community support for the Bell Station land for that to continue, the negotiations to continue between the Finger Lakes Land Trust acting as an agent of the DEC to purchase the land at fair market value from NISAG. So that encouragement was relayed to NISAG, and we're just kind of waiting to see the outcome there. I've also reached out to Carly Norton, the regional rep to the governor's office, to make her aware of the situation on the ground and the local support for Finger Lakes Land Trust's purchase of this land at fair market value. So those are the actions taken to date and kind of the status from where I sit.
Thank you very much, Lisa. A great update and a lot of good phone calls and meetings. Deborah.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. I'm glad everybody's working on this. A couple of things I'm trying to nail down. I had seen some research that was done that suggested that the PSC required NISAG to sell lands like this by public auction. But then when I spoke with Anna, and when she spoke at the picnic on Sunday, she indicated that that was not the case. And I just want to be sure that we know that they're not required to do this. Can you opine on that? Has Jonathan looked into that?
No, I will bring that back and ask him to look into that. So the question is whether the PSC is actually requiring this of NISAG?
Right. It doesn't sound like that's accurate. And it may be because this land was never actually like an electric facility or an energy facility. It was never used for that. So that's perhaps an exception. And it doesn't sound like it's a requirement if John Howard's reaching out to them. And then the other piece of this that could be problematic is that it's my understanding that the Finger Lakes Land Trust can't pay more than fair market value. And, you know, that's kind of not a great economic incentive for NYSEG, obviously. Is there any way if the county participated in some way, are we similarly limited?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and you can understand, think about it, you can understand that the law would say that a local government can't
No,
hand
I
over
understand.
extra money to a seller of a property for any reason, just can only pay fair market value. So that, yeah, Andy told me that applies to nonprofits as well as to governments at all level. Lisa, the issue about being required to sell it at auction, which says for the highest price, has to do with whether this is, the way I understand it, whether this is kind of a ratepayer asset or a stockholder asset.
That's exactly right, Martha.
If it's a ratepayer, I'm not so smart. This is from Irene Weiser. So if it's a ratepayer asset, you can also understand the PSC's mission to protect the ratepayer, that NYSEG should sell it for the most money they can get because that helps the ratepayers theoretically. If it's technically a shareholder asset, then that's just protecting private investors, and the PSC has no obligation to require NYSEG as shareholders. So that's the nuance, and that's where the issue of, is it a utility? Has it ever been used as a utility? Is relevant. And I actually talked to Jerry Goodenough too, who knows a fair bit about this stuff, and he thought because it was never used as a utility, that might be true.
It's a shareholder asset if they didn't pay for it with ratepayer money. Yeah.
Right. And they never actually used it for any kind of public utility. They've just been land banking it this whole time. So, but you're right, Deborah, if John Howard is, as chair of the PSC, telling NYSEG they should do the right thing, that's a pretty good signal.
Yeah.
And I hope that there'll be follow through in that direction. So, and Lisa, I think, did you say you talked to, or is Andy talking to the governor's people and the Basel Sagos?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe yes to both. And I don't know if you've all seen the Finger Lakes Land Trust has a website out with on this issue in particular for people to advocate. So yes, that connects also to the governor's office, the DEC, NYSEG, et cetera.
And as of yesterday, when I checked, that petition that was going around had about 4,200 signatures. Do we have a sense that there's anything more we should do as a legislature, can do? I mean, continued phone calls or, petitions. Is there anything else that kind of we should keep agitating or advocating?
I think all of these channels are the indications that I've received, that these are the channels that we should be working, the DEC, the PSC, NYSEG, and the governor's office, and certainly working with our assembly member and senators too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a bipartisan issue. Senator Helming is definitely working on this too. So I see on the screen here that somebody at Anna Kellis's office has logged in. Anna, were we talking about you behind your back? We
Yep. I've been listening to the whole thing.
Well,
She was here?
Yep, I'm here. I have an email from central staff in the assembly after they spoke directly with NYSEG confirming that this is not a required auction.
Yay.
So that is from NYSEG directly.
Uh-huh.
They also said that if the auction goes through, they intend to not select a preferred bid themselves, but send all the bids to PSC for review if the auction goes through. The other thing that I think is important to note is that my understanding is that the town intends to put a resolution forward, saying that they basically restrictions on what type of residential they would allow as development, which I think is extremely important because that will limit how much above an appraised value that that anyone, I think, in their right mind would offer for the property, because it guarantees they wouldn't get that return on the investment if they have a cap on the quantity of development that could happen on this property.
Okay.
And it would be worth connecting with the town.
Okay.
It's too bad Mike's not here, but I can talk to Ed or Joe. One of the pieces.
They can't spot zone. I mean,
It's not about spot zoning. It's more about what the land can hold. It's about details. I would connect with them. Spot zoning is illegal.
right.
I was wondering if we could
Deborah?
urge them to have some sort of restriction on where on that particular property they could build. Because honestly, if they want to put a development of some kind up on the higher reaches of that land and preserve the public access to the lakefront, I think that would be a compromise that would more or less suit everyone.
Yep. Yeah, definitely worth connecting with them.
And you said that NYSEG is going to send all the bids to PSC, and
That is what
PSC
they're indicating if the auction goes through.
right, and PSC would choose.
They did not say that. They didn't go that far. They simply said for review.
Oh, for review. Okay. And I know Andy told me the land trust is certainly going to put in a bid.
Yes.
Yeah, the issue, of course, is they're likely not going to be the highest bidder. Okay, well, that's interesting. So you're saying this is Assembly Central staff has gotten this from NYSEG.
Correct.
That's pretty good. That's great. That's excellent. Is that an email that can be shared?
It's 3 sentences. I mean, I pretty much just told you exactly what that information is.
Okay. Deborah, is that another hand? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just very handy this morning. A couple of things. I think if there is some way to publicize the petitions and the resolutions and the number of communications from local residents to various parties in advance of the auction, if the auction goes forward, that might have some impact in terms of depressing the bids. And then another piece of this is, would it be possible to do some sort of deal where Finger Lakes Land Trust pays the fair market value for the land and then has an agreement to subdivide it and sell the upper reaches of the land, the parts that's away from the lake, the parts that we're not as concerned about protecting. And somehow or another, there would be some sort of split on the profits of that with NYSEG. That would be kind of a sweetener for NYSEG. Sorry, go ahead.
Finger Lakes Central actually has been working with Hurrah Power on them doing solar on that flat upper land. But if there was something, I know that they don't care about the whole property, but if there was some sort of sweetener connected to that for NYSEG, it would certainly make their bid more attractive.
I don't know if that would be permissible. I have no idea.
Yeah. I mean,
The only
Andy is,
thing that I would suggest, just keeping in mind, if the discussions move forward for purchase of that upper part, if they do actually get that land, is that it is not used to create solar that's then used for cryptocurrency.
Well, I'll trust you to take care of that, Anna.
I'm on it.
Yeah.
Just as an update, though, the comment from NYSEG, actually, Martha, is that they would send all bids to the PSC for review and approval, and that it would most likely then go to a public hearing if that were the case. So there are many layers of backup.
okay.
So just as a correction to my previous statement.
Yeah, I understand PSC has to approve the sale.
Right, but typically, my understanding is that NYSEG could pick their preferred bid. And in this case, they're saying that they would simply send all bids for PSC's review and approval, and there's typically a public hearing for that process.
Well, that is progress. That is definitely progress. That's good. So was there somebody in the chambers? Mike Sigler, you are here.
Yeah, sorry, I'm late.
Hey there. We're
Well,
talking
maybe,
we're talking
I'm
about
sorry.
your town. Yeah, we're talking about your town, Mike. We're talking about Bell Station, and what the town might be able to do in terms of sort of restricting what kind of residences might be allowed on the Bell Station property, and would that have a depressive effect on the bids that might come through? Are you talking to Ed Levine or to CJ or any of them on this?
Yeah, we're talking to pretty much everybody, but I mean, I think that's zoned. It's probably zoned industrial, so you probably can put anything you want on there, which is
not the
unfortunate.
lakefront.
Lakefront is residential, and above that is agricultural.
Okay, so, well, that's actually good news, but the agricultural in Lansing really doesn't offer you any protections.
Right.
I mean, that's the big debate going on right now, right? Is should rural just be anything goes? I'm surprised that the lakefront's actually residential, just considering where it is. But okay, but the good news from Anna, I thought, was the fact that this has to go back to the PSC no matter who owns it. So that's new information for me, and that's good information. So.
Yeah, we understand that PSC has to approve the sale, but the idea is, the difference here is that NYSEG is send all the bids with prejudice to the PSC, rather than saying, here's the bid we want, and it's a pass-fail from the PSC. So that's an important distinction. Perhaps let's think about kind of publicity about the community opposition is a good step. Perhaps a meeting, we can have a conversation with CJ Randall at the town of Lansing and maybe Ed Levine to kind of see what their strategy is, to bring them in the loop and see what they might be able to do.
My understanding, Martha, is that they're working pretty closely with Pam Helming. And if Pam's working with Anna, then I think that we've closed that circle. But yeah, it never hurts to hear directly from Ed and CJ.
Okay. Anna, what else would you suggest?
Honestly,
Pam and I were
I would say double the number of people who are sending that petition. I can't overemphasize that, honestly. Public input here makes a huge difference, and it might feel boring as something to do, but we really have reached out to everyone who is relevant. I have been consistently in touch with Senator Helming. As you may have seen, we my office and I worked on a letter that she and I signed and sent to the DEC, the PSC, and Hochul's office. We're doing public outreach, education. So, we're all on it. The public needs to weigh in.
Okay.
I saw Pam on Friday too, and she had actually brought up the Barton property too. So
Correct.
she's working to kind of preserve that as well. It's like,
Correct.
okay, another property, fantastic.
So, well, I don't know if you want to open that up, Martha, but that is obviously another topic.
Yeah, hold on one second. So it seems we should maybe talk about maybe do an op-ed or a couple of op-eds. I know that Andy Zepp has a lobbyist, Jeff Jones, who's somebody I know also and he's trying to get an article in the Albany Times-Union. Maybe we really sort of focus on the sort of public info campaign. I can ask CJ and Ed if they want to sit down and just kind of make sure we're all on the same page. And before we go to another topic, Diane Miller is supposed to join us at 10:30, and we were expecting you at 11. So did your staff not get the 11 o'clock, or are you just joining in for fun to come in early?
She missed us.
I miss it. Yes, it's that. I'm multitasking.
Okay.
But you are talking about topics that, of course, I've been very active on. So I figured easier to just all be on the same call on these issues.
That's perfect. That's great. All right, terrific. We are expecting Diane in a couple of minutes. So
I will be popping in and out, just FYI, but I'm here.
Okay, that's great. So about Camp Barton, maybe before she joins us, we were sort of told it was not exactly in Tompkins County, which makes it a little bit harder, but what do you know, Anna?
Well, it is in Seneca County, my understanding, and I have not gotten an update of what happened yesterday. That was when the vote was supposed to happen by the board of whether or not they want to move forward with the auction. Part of what I will be disappearing for momentarily is to get that information. As many of you know, there's of course issues happening at the federal level. The Boy Scouts at the federal level has a lot of lawsuits against them. They are looking for funding from each of the chapters to indemnify them from those proceedings. My understanding is the local chapter, their requirement is about 1.2 million. They have been considering off and on selling this property for many years. This has sort of instigated the conversation again. The property value is somewhere close to what they actually owe or could be. So that's part of the impetus. My understanding is that Seneca County is certainly interested in the sale and the development, because that would of course bring in important additional tax revenue. So there is not necessarily, at least at this point, consistency in the desire for whether or not it's sold. The board is comprised of people from Tompkins County as well as people from Broome County. My understanding is that it's a split between what the board members want, but there's more members of Broome County than Tompkins County.
Why isn't Seneca County involved in this? Isn't the land in there?
It is. That doesn't mean, originally, this is a really old association.
Oh, okay.
So that they purchased land and have been running land on the lake, maybe because that's what was available to the association, the chapter. But the central location of the chapter is between Broome and Tompkins.
Okay.
It's literally right over the border too, right? So Camp Comstock, which is the Girl Scouts, is if I recall, is in Tompkins County. It could also be in Seneca County, but both of them are right just north of Tompkins County. If not in, I have to check where Camp Comstock is.
Okay. All right, so seems like from our point of view, I'm not sure there's as vibrant standing for us or an issue. I don't know if there's anything we want to do as a group. Or
I think that we definitely will want to do something as a county because there are no borders in the lake. That's just my 2 cents. It will greatly impact the health of the lake, regardless. If there is significant development, it's no different than Bell Station in that regard. But it isn't in our county. So, well, obviously, there are people from all over the Finger Lakes who've signed the petition for Bell Station. It's no different, I think, in that regard. We just happen to be the home county. So I think that is something people are looking into. From my perspective, the ideal would be that the state purchase the land as parkland in perpetuity. And my understanding is that is where Senator Helming stands as well. But I'll be in touch with her.
Deborah?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I understand that the impact does not honor county borders. I just am not sure that we're going to be viewed as a county with a lot of standing on this particular issue.
Yeah, I think that the Finger Lakes Land Trust is interested. They're aware of it. They're active on this as well. Just like with the Bell Station property, it's probably a good idea to bring them in and let them take the lead because they're not county specific.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Do we know whether it would be an auction if they do sell it?
Yes, it would be.
Okay. I thought I saw a headline that said the appraised value was 4.3 million.
Yeah, all I know is that the level that would indemnify them is 1.2 million. I don't know the exact appraised value of the property. I do know that their intention is to cover that 1.2. So if it is higher than that, then that's what it is. They just need to cover that minimum.
Right. Deborah?
I thought I saw a headline that said that they were going to vote on it last night. Did that happen?
That is what I need to get information on. It's been a long day.
Well, already.
Yeah.
All right. I guess we want to get Andy on the phone. All right. All right. Thank you, Anna. I mean, it's interesting. There are, clearly facilities there for recreation, obviously. It's how it's been used all these years. And, Anna, you said you went to Camp Comstock. My son went to Camp Barton. There's all that, So, all right. Well, to be continued. Thank you very much, Anna. And I see Diane is joining us here. Lisa, did you have anything else for your report?
I did not. I have to jump off in a couple minutes for another meeting, but it's been great to see you all.
All right. Thanks a lot, Lisa. Hi, Diane. How are you?
Hi, Martha. Hi, Martha. Thanks for the invitation and for working around my schedule. It's like 10:30 to 11 was the only time in your window that fits. So I appreciate whatever accommodations you had to make to do it. So
this works.
I know.
It's great to have you.
Exactly.
So,
I know Charlie's on campus today with people. It's like that feels almost normal.
right.
So,
I know.
So
you see, Anna's joining us. She's multitasking, and she's going to be in and out. So she's part of the conversation too. We're happy to say, Diane, there's nothing much going on in Washington, right?
well, it's typical Washington hurry up and wait kind of activity. We are, what's today, the 20, so 9 days left in the fiscal year. So there's that on top of.
Sorry.
Exactly. No. I was going to say, so you've got the, so there's the budget reconciliation process, which is this, the economic recovery package. So a lot of the Biden kind of, Build Back Better agenda. And then you've got the separate infrastructure, which is the, sort of the traditional roads and bridges and water projects and broadband and, some of the transit, the types of programs that would be funded in a traditional highway or water resources bill.
You mean now you're talking about the bipartisan bill.
The bipartisan bill. So you've got, so you have all of these. So, there's a version of that that's passed the House, a version of that passed the Senate. They're nothing alike. And you've got to try and, come together with some sort of conference around those. You've got this budget reconciliation package. So the budget passed both the House and the Senate, which had the instructions. The House reported back all of their bills, according to the instructions that they received in the Budget Committee. So now they're at the point where they have to sort of stitch them all together into a bill that the House would pass. But they're trying to pre-negotiate it with the Senate so that whatever the House votes on, the Senate would just sort of rubber stamp. And that's where all of these machinations come in. And because the margins in both the House and the Senate are so slim, it doesn't take very many people to upend. In the Senate, it's one person. In the House, it's 4 people. And so right now you've got a group of the Blue Dogs who are adamant that it's like, you promised us a vote on infrastructure on September 27th. And if we don't get to vote on infrastructure on September 27th, then we're not going to vote for the budget reconciliation. And then the progressives who are like, wait a minute, if you pare this back so that it fits in Joe Manchin's box, I'm not going to vote for it. So it's there a lot of juggling is going on right now. So it would have been very interesting. I'm not surprised Amanda Spellacy is not joining, but it would be interesting to hear her take on this, because Senator Schumer is the one who's trying to, keep his caucus together to the extent that he can. And then the other factor, like I said, we're coming in on the end of the fiscal year. So you've got the regular appropriations process and sort of the authorization for the government to spend money. None of the FY22 appropriations bills have been signed by the president. So there will be a vote on a continuing resolution. I keep hearing that it will go until January, or not January, but through December. But the big concern is, will it contain a debt ceiling, either suspension or sort of extension of the debt ceiling again? So the government not authorizing government to spend money, but authorizing government to borrow money. And if they don't extend the debt ceiling, I think Janet Yellen was on the Hill and in the New York Times and everywhere yesterday saying, we will default. We've run out of our sort of extraordinary measures. And so we're at the point where this would blow up the world financial system. And Mitch McConnell's like, hey, y'all are in charge. This is your problem, not ours.
Oh, please. Sorry.
Well, that's a paraphrase, but it's basically, he's like, you Democrats have all 3 levers. It's your responsibility, not ours in the minority. And so there seems to be, this is the leader's position, whether if it came down to a vote to, let the United States default on its debt, whether people would fall in line behind that or not. So you've got all of these things that are, sort of aimed at about the same deadline, which is the end of September. And right now, everybody's playing chicken. And it's a matter of how do you give everybody a victory without, or some plausible, like, see, we held out and we got this extra, without, sort of, without making, sort of, it's the give and take, because everyone's got to say that they won something for
Right.
this for this to end well. I mean, you all are legislators, so how that compromise thing works. But right now, I think everybody is, kind of dug in. And so it's Nancy
I
Pelosi
think,
and Chuck Schumer trying to navigate through all of this.
yeah, I mean, I think there's this level, which is what everybody announces in the press. And then there's all of this other stuff. And it's absolutely a Rubik's Cube. And just to be clear, the debt ceiling is about paying the bills that have been incurred in the past. This is not borrowing new money to pay for future spending. It's about the past, like the bills
Right.
that the Republicans pushed,
Oh,
like the
yeah.
tax cuts and all the bills for COVID that they voted for as well. So,
I mean, anybody who has a treasury bond in their investment portfolio is at risk for this. Yes. So, because that's how they finance it, is by issuing debt that's, as good as, that's the, safest, most, sure, low yielding, but safe investment that you can make. And so, yeah,
right.
That's, as I'm looking at my little retirement.
Right. Right. Deborah?
Yeah, I was wondering if the little mini crash in the stock market yesterday might create some additional incentive to not see the bond market collapse as well.
Well, that's a good question, good observation, and I think one of those ones where yesterday they were able to tie it back to this Chinese real estate company and so it didn't feel like it was maybe connected, but it also shows you how, but it's also an illustration of how, it's that butterfly effect, how everything is so connected in the markets that if anything, happens one place, it has ripples through. And this would not be a Chinese real estate company. This would be the full faith and credit of the United States government. So it's a different animal, but I think that something like that is a good wake up call, because we haven't seen, stocks have been kind of on this, happy upward trajectory once they figured out that, we've got a vaccine and so yeah, I think that there haven't been too many, Dow lose that much in one day, S&P fall by that much in one day events for a while now. So
we have had government shutdowns before.
Yes.
In relatively recent memory, but we've never defaulted on the debt before.
No. I mean, there've been many times where they've reached kind of their borrowing authority and have used the extraordinary measures so they don't make payments to pensions. They delay certain things. They stage, it's like, okay, well, I'm not, the things that people do to manage their cash flow, but they've always been able to stretch it until they got the authority to bond. And so, yeah, this would be unprecedented, certainly in the, I think ever, but certainly in the modern, since we've had a Federal Reserve and this kind of regulation of money supply and all of that. So.
Welcome, Mike. Thanks for joining. Diane, what about the sort of normal appropriations bills? We know we were asked to submit earmark proposals by both senators and in fact, Tom Reed as well. And those were going through it's hard to even say the word normal, but normal process with committee markups, et cetera.
Right.
Do you know anything about where those bills are?
So the House has passed, the House Appropriations Committee has passed all 12 of the annual spending bills. The House itself has approved 9 of those 12. And then there are 3 of them that are still kind of hanging back because they're trying to, negotiate controversial issues. The Senate hasn't, the Senate Appropriations Committee has marked up 3 bills. They were supposed to mark up a couple more last week, but the Republicans said, no, we're not going to cooperate until you sort out the top lines for defense and non-defense spending. So normally, in the normal in a normal appropriations process, you'd pass your budget, that would tell you what your annual spending level was, and then you would divide that top line up amongst the 12 subcommittees to pay for. So it's 302A is the top line, 302Bs are the individual bills. They didn't do that this year. And so the House used something called a deeming resolution to say, we deem that this is what the level is going to be. The Senate did not. Normally, and again, normal procedure, the Senate's marked up 3 bills. Normally, one of the things that they would have done when they're marking up their first bill is to set their 302B allocations. They did not do that. And the controversy or the concern is the president's budget, when he proposed it, had a 17% increase for non-defense, so domestic programs, and like a 1%, 2% increase for defense. And that's always been the thing that's pulled the annual spending process through, was this agreement that we were going to have parity in the increases in spending. So they would go up at the same rate. And so, or they would be cut at the same rate. And that was part of the Budget Control Act, which expired or expires in 9 days. So at the end of this fiscal year. So without that lever, the Biden administration's like, yeah, we're not bound by that. And so we're going to spend money on our priorities. And these are what our priorities are. But there's been this pushback in Congress. And so until they sort this level, the spending levels out between defense and non-defense, so that the increase, they're at an impasse to do the individual spending bills in the Senate. And so so you've got a mismatch between the House and the Senate right now. So it's just, again, it's the budget geek in me is like, this is fascinating. This would be like a great PhD thesis. But when you're living through it, it's like, oh my gosh, this is awful.
Right.
So,
well, and of course, a 1% increase in defense is probably equal to the dollars of a 17% increase in the domestic
Or
side.
more.
yeah, there is, that sort of, but anyway, it's been this sort of, and the situation in Afghanistan doesn't help, because then they can say, see, this is what we're talking about. These are the people that you're cutting their, it's people will use it to their advantage. But so as they sort through that issue, so this week, the House will debate the annual defense authorization bill. So it doesn't spend money, but it tells them how much money, it's like gives them the authority to spend the money. And both the House and the Senate, when they put together their defense authorization bills, authorized significantly more spending than the administration proposed in their budget. So there's some, some people in Congress have said, there's been an expression that we want you to spend more on defense. The House Defense Appropriations Bill has, again, higher levels than what the president had approved, but not, to the level that makes the parity caucus happy. So so you've got that extra issue in there too. So like I said, it's all of these moving parts where
I can see why Gonzalez said he wasn't going to run again.
well, he's also got the people who are stalking him because, he's not sufficiently Republican enough or something, but
no, this is complexity beyond, this is wild. And September 27th is next Monday. So just to remind everybody.
That was, again, that's the Blue Dogs were like, you promised us a vote on infrastructure by September 27th. But it was like, we are going to, we've got the September 15th deadline for the committees to report back their budget reconciliation measures, which then we'll stitch together. So, what Nancy Pelosi is saying was that the vote on infrastructure was contingent on a vote on the budget reconciliation. And we haven't finished that yet. So we have to stage these properly. So again, it's, people are using whatever it is to their advantage right now, but it's peak posturing time. And everyone is working to get the best deal for whatever their position is in all of this.
And they say there's going to be a vote on the voting rights bill too this week. Before I go to Deborah, Henry or Mike, any comments or questions? Okay, Deborah.
Do you think we're past the point of people up there realizing that their little individual victories are costing everyone much more than they're gaining?
Yeah, that's, well, again, everybody's looking ahead to the next election cycle. And, redistricting is going to play very heavily into this. And so to keep people engaged, people, the voters, whoever it is, through this process. But, nobody has, no, as far as I know, no jurisdictions anywhere have reported their redrawn districts yet. And I know this is turning into an issue in Virginia because the Virginia has off year, the state and local elections in Virginia are off year. And so they haven't drawn the new districts, and that's the concern, is that you're using last decade's numbers and sort of winking and nodding at the fact that we need to have, or blaming it on the census for being late in reporting the numbers. And so there's court challenges coming out of that. So I've sort of, and again, it's because Virginia's right here, we get to watch it in real time, and it's playing out in their governor's races and in their assembly and state senate district
You mean
races.
they were on a normal calendar, they would have already I think the chambers is
Yeah.
unmuted and there's a lot of noise. Do you mean I know the governor's race is happening in November, so you're saying they're all the
Right.
local.
The
And
assembly
normally-
and the assembly and the state senate. And so normally you would have your numbers early enough that you would be able to draw your new districts, but because they were so far delayed, they were not able to do anything. And so again, you would be running in, the Constitution requires that you have to have you have to redraw your districts based on where your population is every time the census reports. And so it's, like I said, it's turned into an issue, and I, may have missed some of the nuances of it, but that's basically what the challenge is going to be locally, and whether that has any, next year sort of federal election implications, but to the extent that people look at places like Virginia as a harbinger of what's national sentiment.
I mean, I don't see how they could have possibly redistricted. We only got the data
Exactly.
in August.
Exactly. So but like I said, it's shaping up to be an issue in their local elections. This, and I know some people are upset that Terry McAuliffe is that's again, that's Virginia, but to the extent that that's a harbinger for anything locally. But I think as districts start being drawn, then you're going to see a lot of this rhetoric, to Deborah's point, heat up even more, because it's like we've got our eyes on the big prize. So.
Yeah, we'll talk about redistricting a little later. And Diane, is there anything from Cornell's point of view that you're specifically looking at in terms of any of these things? Budget?
Well, so we didn't do any of the congressionally directed spending this year, because I think it was mostly just, let's figure out how this is going to work so that we can use it to our advantage if this happens. And so it's been interesting to see what projects got funded, learning a little bit more about, Senator Schumer put in pages and pages and pages of requests, and the 3 bills that the Senate have passed, he's gotten 4 or 5 projects out of that. So it's like, okay, how do so learning how to play that game. So I'm sort of watching that behind the scenes. But, for the annual appropriations for Cornell is significant. And so, of course, any of the funding for our students, for student aid, we're part of this national campaign to double the size of the Pell Grant, which helps our lowest income students. And they're the ones who come to Cornell with, 100% aid packages. And so the more the federal government supports these students, and the more that Cornell can sort of our institutional aid can go to more of our students who don't qualify for Pell Grants and other, federal aid programs. So that's a high priority. And then, of course, the funding for federal research is, NIH, NSF. Cornell gets between $450 and $500 million a year in federal support for our research across all of our campuses. So that's, right at the top of our list. And all of those people who work in those labs live in the community and spend money in the community. So very important for economic health in the county and city as well. And then so everything that comes out in that annual spending is incredibly important to us. If there's a government shutdown right around harvest time, because a lot of our partners, we have 2 federal USDA labs on our campus, and those folks have to go home. And so sometimes it's the concern about how, a year's worth of research is sitting out there in a field, and if there's nobody there to bring it in because the federal government has stopped money. So big concerns around that. And so very important priority to keep the federal government open, and with even spending money at last year's level keeps things on an even keel on campus. So it's just, like I said, a top priority for us. So those are our big things that we're looking at right now.
Just not that much on your plate. I mean, if I'm
Martha, you're frozen.
being taught this, all right. Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay. If I'm being totally Pollyanna about this, I apologize. But one idea is, with so many moving parts, in a sense, there's so many negotiating tools. There's so many, if you can't
Oh, you're frozen again.
shoot. All right. Is that better?
Yeah, try it that way.
Okay. If you can't get somebody's vote, you just have a lot of different negotiating pieces that that Schumer and Pelosi might be able to, trade this for that and hope to be able to get these things across the finish line. So, and I also just kind of feel like the Democrats can't afford to fail. This is, failure is not an option on the budget bill and the infrastructure bill.
Yeah, and I think Nancy Pelosi, for being she is very astute and has figured out how to balance all of those competing interests as well as anybody, I think, could possibly do. But she's very, very, very well attuned to her blue dogs, because they're the ones who, if they lose their election, they're going to lose it to a Republican. They're not going to lose it to another Democrat in the primary. And so I would say, watch closely what the blue dog demands are, because I think, again, they know what they need to do for their folks back home. And so and Nancy Pelosi knows that, and she's willing to take the heat from the progressives, because she's from San Francisco. It doesn't get much more progressive than that. So she understands. So, and I think, Chuck Schumer, of course, too, he knows how to make a majority as well. And so he's got, he's looking at who's up for reelection. What do I have to do to make sure that Senator Warnock comes back next year? How do we win in North Carolina? And so he's got a lot of things that he's trying to balance so that he can use those to his advantage as well. And it's mind-boggling how everybody keeps all of those balls in the air, and again, balance everything so it comes out in the end. But yeah, it's a big challenge. I don't bet against Chuck Schumer, though, or Nancy Pelosi, because I think the people who do are usually sorry. So, if we don't get everything we want, then it's up to the folks on the other end to say, we're a lot farther along than we would have been if, you know, we didn't do this process. So that's the notion that it's all or nothing is one of those sort of disturbing things, disturbing trends from
Yeah.
somebody who just likes to get something done. So
That's what I do. I do think that with so many moving parts, and anytime you're talking about a money bill, there are infinite number of points between 0 and that's certainly hoping that we can get something done. Well, it looks like your time is about up.
It is. It's nice to see everybody. Thank you again for inviting me. I'll have to catch up with Gary Stewart. I don't see anybody from Gary's office in here, but he keeps me in the loop on everything that's going on in town. So appreciate the chance to stop by and say hi this morning.
You bet.
Next time I'll have better news, I promise.
All right.
Well, actually, it's great to have you explain all these subtexts because we don't get this from the news.
Oh, well, it's nice to have people whose eyes don't glaze over.
Oh, no, I love this stuff.
Yeah, actually, we're glazing over a little bit, but you can't see it as well on Zoom. But yeah, thanks a million, Diane. It's just great to have your input. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Bye,
Have a
everybody.
good
Thank you.
one.
All right, take care. So we can go back to Anna if she's there, and I would and I can wait a minute. I would like to take a minute and go to redistricting as maybe the next topic, and maybe Anna can weigh in on that as well. But I think everybody here knows that Deborah and Henry and I met with Senator Mark Gianaris. Was that just a week ago? And he is a majority leader of the Senate, and he's a member of LAT4, which is, Deborah, you'd ask.
Yeah, you're freezing, Martha.
With
You
that-
got to turn your camera off.
Okay. Scientific Research and Reapportionment, that's LAT4. That's the bipartisan bicameral group of the state legislature that in the past has drawn the maps. Can everybody hear me? Am I all right?
Yes, you're good.
All right. Everybody, so LAT4 has actually produced the maps in the past reapportionment processes, except 10 years ago, the courts ended up drawing the congressional maps. So we met with Gianaris on September 10th. He actually predicted, that was before the state Independent Redistricting Commission had come out with their maps, but he predicted to us that he thought that they would not come together, that they would not be able to vote out one set of maps, and he was right. And I just wanted to share the screen I have where, and Henry found this elegant article of where you can see that. I don't know if anybody played with it like this. This is from draft maps posted for New York State voting. Inform New York so thanks, Henry, for finding this. I don't want to make you dizzy here, but this is the congressional map. And if you go this way with the arrow, you see the Democratic lines. And if you go this way, you see the Republican maps. To remind you, the commission is 4 members. They're 5 and 5, Democrat and Republican appointments. So this is, if you can see my cursor, that's Tompkins County. And this means that the shape of this looks like we are intactly in this district. So the Republicans, the Republicans would not just keep us in New York 23, they would take out this part of the Finger Lakes that had been in that district in the last 10 years. They would extend, Schuyler, they would extend the district to the east to pick up enough population. So that's the Republican version. And I'm going to focus on, what these maps mean for us. The Democratic version has quite a different picture. So this is, again, we're intact in this district. I think this might be called New York 22. John Katko, Republican, is from the Syracuse area. Claudia Tenney is a Republican from the Utica area. I'm not positive whether she actually lives within these lines or not, but that would put us in a pretty different, very different profile from where we are right now. It does accomplish what we asked for, which is to stay intact, but it does not put us with Cortland County. Am I right, Mike? Cortland is not, this is the end of Tompkins, right?
Yeah, it's the east side
Yeah.
of
So-
Tompkins is up against Cortland, and no, they're including that in that Binghamton district.
In the big Binghamton district. Okay. And if Anna jumps on, I know her staff was working on some graphics about some maps too, but I'll just keep talking until Anna gets here.
I'm here.
Hey, hi, Anna. All right.
Hi.
So how about we just go through this a minute and then we'll go to, your presentation on this. So this is the state Senate side. So the state Senate, the Democratic map would put our Senate, again, put us in one district, which is what we wanted. Takes us out of the Finger Lakes, takes us from Chemung and Steuben, but puts us with the Broome County. So there's a Democratic flavor. The Republican flavor does keep us intact, but moves us to the north to the Finger Lakes. So there's that. And then finally the Assembly District, which Anna, I don't know about you, but I was pretty surprised to see this.
I was surprised by both.
Yeah, the Democratic flavor takes us away from Cortland, which is what we, really wished we would continue. Keeps us intact, but moves us to the north, sort of not quite to Syracuse. The Republican maps actually cuts Tompkins County. Wait a second. Come on, go away. Cuts Tompkins County in half and moves us to, I'm not even sure where that is. So, so I would invite you to, look at this website that I'll stop sharing now that Henry found. So thanks again, Henry. It's as the clearest thing I could find that really lets you look at these issues. There, just to finish up, the hearings are going to be public hearings starting October 15th on these maps. The commission is required to send a set of maps or two sets of maps, whatever it's going to send to the legislature, I think January 1st. If there are two sets, then they would have a second chance to send a set of maps. If they can't agree, then the legislature will just draw the maps. But that I'm really sort of summarizing very quickly. So Anna, you want to take it from here on your perspectives on this and what you see?
Yeah, I would just follow up on your comment about public comment. Hugely important. So step back for a second. I just want to make people aware of the bill that was passed in January, I think, of this past session, A1916. And I spoke about it briefly this weekend to some of you, but I did want to bring this up again. I would look at the things that are changed specifically. But it does outline, it says in the year 2022 only, the commission shall submit to this legislature a first redistricting plan no later than January 1st, 2022. If either house shall fail to approve the legislation implementing the first redistricting plan, or the governor shall veto such legislation and the legislature shall fail to override such veto, each house or the governor, if he or she vetoes it, shall promptly notify the commission that such legislation has been disapproved no later than January 15th, 2022, the Redistricting Commission shall prepare and submit to the legislature a second redistricting plan and the necessary implementing legislation for such plan. Such legislation shall be voted upon without amendment by the Senate or the Assembly, and if approved by the first house voting upon it, such legislation shall be delivered to the other house immediately to be voted upon without amendment. If approved by both houses, such legislation shall be presented to the governor for action. It should also be noted that if it is not approved, if I'm going to skip a little bit, or the districting commission fails to vote on a redistricting plan and implementing legislation by the required deadline to the legislature, that the legislature would present, how do I summarize? Would draw their maps. And then that would be presented to the governor. So if we're hoping for a bipartisan, it really is important that there are maps that take public comment into consideration. Obviously, legislators will certainly be influenced by their constituents. If the constituents are unhappy with the first or second map, then we will not approve them, and then it goes to the legislature to draft the maps. So that's hugely important. I do want to note that this bill is a referendum. So if the referendum does not pass on the ballot, one of the propositions, I think it's the first proposition, then this gets very hairy. The other thing I did want to point out, if people are looking at the bill on bottom of page 3, top of page 4, it does outline an update to the criteria that must be followed in drawing the maps. And as I said, this weekend, there are some significant and important updates. One of them being, for example, that people who are incarcerated should be counted in their home district. It specifically says, to the extent practicable, all incarcerated persons shall be remunerated to their place of last residence for the purpose of drawing district lines, not where they are incarcerated, noting that a disproportionate number of people who are incarcerated come from downstate, so it is inappropriate for them to be counted where they are incarcerated, which is predominantly upstate. So that does skew numbers.
And if we can jump in, so that's
You're frozen, Martha.
all of that is we have.
I'm going to run through a few more things really quickly, Martha, and then we can just jump to questions. But I do think there's a few other things that are really important.
Sorry.
What's the bill number
let me-
again?
And let me
It's
just
bill
say,
number A1916.
Thank you.
in your packet page 3 is the list of proposals, of the 5 ballot proposals. So like a few sentence summaries of each proposal. So everybody's got like a brief summary that's being handed out by our Board of Elections.
Yeah,
Just wanna
that's
mention
important, which is great. A couple other things that are really important when people are doing public comment. One of the criteria listed of the 6 criteria, each district shall consist of contiguous territories, and each district shall be as compact and firm as practicable. And there's a priority put in keeping them whole. That is really important. And the last thing that I will say about this, and why this is absolutely so important for us in particular, with respect to the Assembly District and the Senate District, is that districts shall not be drawn to discourage competition or for the purpose of favoring or disfavoring incumbents or other particular candidates or political parties. That should not be a consideration. The commission shall consider the maintenance of cores of existing districts. They should, so I'll read that again, shall consider the maintenance of cores of existing districts, of pre-existing political subdivisions, including counties, cities, and towns, and of communities of interest. And why is that the communities of interest particularly important to us? I'll mention just for this, the Assembly District, but this is also the case for the other districts. Particular consideration shall be for keeping districts as similar to what they were as possible, because we have all been voting together, working together for how many years, right? So Cortland and Tompkins County in the Assembly District, for example, we've been together for over 30 years. So there are things and interests that we have had, that we have been voting on, that we've been fighting for together collectively, that would then be subdivided. So our interests would have to start all over again in building those connections. Secondly, communities of interest. We have the largest number of in-commuters in Tompkins County coming from Cortland County. We share TC3 together. We are both college towns. This would divide the two main college towns in this entire area into two separate districts and put us with an area, at least in the Assembly, that is exclusively rural and very different than a large portion of Tompkins County, which is not rural. So it really profoundly changes what we call the communities of interest. So that term is really a buzz term when you are looking at putting together your public comment. And those public hearings will be, I think, late October and through November.
And Anna, did you, I think I got.
You're broken up again, Martha.
No, from you or Jen, your team had put together slides in particular about your district, about the assembly lines. You can't hear me now?
Yes, not. I don't think it gives more information than that interactive map,
Okay.
that you gave. It just specifically has, this is what the Republican recommendation is, and here's what the Democratic recommendation is for Congress, for Senate, and for Assembly. So it just, side-by-side comparison, but that's pretty much what that interactive map does.
Okay. All right. So if I can, I'd like to get the committee to really think about, should we, how do we take a position? What's our position? What do we think our position will be? And, if speaking for the legislature, if we're going to send comments or pass a resolution. So we will certainly take a look at all that. The items you mentioned were in our, pretty much entirely were in our resolution we already passed. Let me shift to other issues. There are tons of things you're working on, I know. Can you tell us about the cryptocurrency issue and where that stands right now?
Yeah, so, we have gotten a significant outcry from literally all of the major environmental groups in the state in support of this bill. And many of them are putting it as one of their main priorities for this coming legislative session. I have been in contact with the DEC and the PSC very consistently, primarily the DEC, on this issue. The conversations have been very positive because, of course, this legislation gives them guidance where there currently isn't any guidance from the legislature to the DEC, because this is such a new issue. So it has been, I've had very positive conversations with both the PSC and the DEC. I've also been in contact with some of the major international cryptocurrencies that use proof of stake, because proof of stake is a model of validating a cryptocurrency that uses almost zero energy in comparison to a proof of work validation method. So Ethereum, which is the second largest cryptocurrency, has committed to convert from proof of work validation of the transactions to proof of stake validation of the transactions. And they've estimated that they will reduce their total global energy consumption by up to 99.95%, just to give a sense of the difference. So it's really important that people understand, I am not against the digital currency arena. It is up to the federal government to really deeply review the regulation with respect to, investments, buying and selling, how it's used, by who it's used. That's up to the federal government. That would be regulated by the federal government. This conversation that we're having at the state level is, what is the environmental impact? There is minimal environmental impact by the other validation methods of transactions, very minimal. It's really only proof of work validation that uses the profound amount of energy, because it pits people against each other to answer that mathematical equation and validate the transaction by answering that equation. And the equations cannot be solved by developing a software. It can only be done by brute force alone, which is why the only way you can get an advantage is by having more computers, which is how we get miners. So people need to understand that miners don't exist for any other form of validation, because there's not any computational energy that's needed, because they're not competing against each other. It is more collaborative in nature because, for example, proof of stake, the system itself randomly selects wallets or accounts or nodes to validate the transaction, not direct competition between users. So this whole industry of mining would simply disappear if cryptocurrencies transition to proof of stake. And it's really important that people understand that. So I'm very positive. I think that we're in a really strong stance going into this next session. I still have work to do, obviously, with the unions. There's a tremendous amount of education that needs to happen. And the digital currency, basically Bitcoin cryptocurrency mining companies are working very hard to build inroads with the unions, and hoping the unions will carry their talking points, which is that it's a great new technology. It'll create a lot of jobs. If we oppose it, then we are anti-tech as a state, all of which is simply not true. It doesn't provide major amounts of jobs, certainly no long-term jobs besides a small handful of people in the facility to maintain the computers, which tend to be engineering jobs, not labor jobs, not union jobs. We're not anti-tech because this is just not comparable to any other tech. Cryptocurrency proof of work model uses more energy globally than Facebook, Google, and Amazon combined. This is not your mom and pop technology. We're not anti-tech. We are simply opposing the unfettered and unregulated expansion of proof of work mining in the state without having a comprehensive environmental assessment of what the impact would be. So that's what my bill would do. And it's still getting very positive response. I have 38 co-sponsors so far. It already passed the Senate. It will be reintroduced in January, and we'll see where it goes.
Pass the Senate. I didn't realize it passed the Senate. That's great. Deborah?
Yeah, what are your bill numbers, Anna?
So this bill is 7389. And I do want to mention that there is another bill, a companion bill that is also really important, that would require that any mothballed power plants relinquish their air permits, their air and water permits, so that if it is purchased, any new purchaser would have to go through the process of getting air and water permits from scratch, which means that they would be required to go through the more stringent environmental review process of the Article 10 process, rather than using the existing air and water permits that the facility has, many of which were granted prior to 2012, and therefore not having a stringent environmental review process. And that one, if I recall correctly, is 7768.
Okay, so I've got a couple of other questions or concerns. So first of all, I want to thank you for explaining that validation piece, because I didn't know that. So people who say that this is anti-tech because it seems to be anti-cryptocurrency are missing the point. It's
Completely.
Cryptocurrency can use two different validation systems, and it's all about the validation system. But
there's actually 16 forms of validation that exist to date.
Okay, well, that's more than I need to know. But the other piece of this that we're going to get pushback on, I think, is, well, you wanted us to mothball these power plants for environmental reasons. And so this offered an alternative to those power plants. And now you don't want us to do that either. I can understand why people feel like we're being obstructive about solving the first problem, which is what to do with this existing infrastructure. So are there other uses? I mean, you may not know this, but are there other uses for these power plants that would be just as economically beneficial, but not as environmentally dangerous?
Well, so it is important to note that Greenwich did not go online to do cryptocurrency. They updated their power plant from coal to natural gas with the intention of selling to the grid. That the cryptocurrency mining of Bitcoin happened several years after they got an ESD grant to extend a natural gas pipeline to the facility.
Yeah, but we don't want natural gas either.
Well, but it's already in place, right? So, so the reason that these, and it's not that I want to mothball power plants, or that these bills will mothball power plants.
No, that's a
really
separate
important.
issue.
Well, so I mean, the issue is that we're in a capitalist system, and there are 49 power plants in the state that could no longer compete on the market. Right? So they are already mothballed because simply they couldn't produce energy cheap enough in comparison to the more updated technology that exists in the power plants that are still in operation. Most of them, if not all of them, have single cycle turbines, for example, rather than dual cycle turbines. They simply do not have the infrastructure, whether they're coal or natural gas is irrelevant. Even converting to natural gas, they simply cannot compete on a market with systems that have the updated turbine systems. So to say that this is making it impossible for for these facilities to be lucrative, when they currently aren't, and they've been mothballed for many decades, I think is disingenuous. There are some that are looking into adding a data center, but it's really important to note that that cryptocurrency mining, it is, again, super disingenuous to say that they are a data center. They're trying to hide underneath that umbrella title. But Bitcoin alone uses more energy than, from what I have heard and seen, the global combination of all data centers. So they're not the same, right? So if you think about a data center, they are, for a large part used for cloud storage. They're used for central processing of software. Software by design is designed to be efficient. That's the nature of software, to do work with to do some outcome, to perform an outcome with it as efficiently as possible. Cryptocurrency mining or proof of work validation was designed literally the exact opposite. It doesn't have embedded in it any efficiency measures. In fact, to be efficient would mean that you would break the system, right? Because people would be able to write software to compete with each other rather than just brute force. So data centers are absolutely an option. They're certainly more energy efficient than a cryptocurrency mining operation. That was my hope for example, the Cayuga Power Plant. When they discussed being a data center, I specifically asked, when I was the county chair of HED, very, very explicitly, I'm in support of a data center as long as it is, using on site solar to power the facility, and as long as it doesn't use crypto, it doesn't engage in cryptocurrency mining. I was very explicit about that at that time, and for the exact reason that I'm stating. They're just not the same. So there are options for these facilities, cryptocurrency mining, is not the direction to go. It will throw our energy consumption as a state through the roof.
Okay,
But
thanks.
just note that my bill is not about banning it. My bill is about getting the data. 3 years of getting the data, which the bill is being updated so that there's a 3-year limit on the moratorium. It currently does not have that language.
All right. Anna, so did you say A7389 is 7389 has passed the assembly, or it's not? If you have 38.
Has not. I have 38 co-sponsors. It passed the Senate in the last session. The language will be modified, so it will need to pass both houses again in this coming session.
Okay. And what's the Senate number? Do you have that?
I don't,
Okay.
off the top of my head.
All right. Well, would a resolution from us be useful? And then I'm going to say, can you write it? I mean, it would be great if we know exactly, how to frame this argument.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it would be good to work with my team, staff, Jordan Lesser, who's my chief counsel, and Stacy Demas, who's my chief of staff, Jen Lyons, who is my communications director, plus everything else.
Okay. All right.
Anna, just have Jordan send me the information in some sort of overview form. And I, Martha and I can work on putting together a resolution.
And it would be good if it outlined both bills simultaneously. They both are
Okay.
companion bills.
You mean the 7768 as well?
Correct.
All right. If you think that's stronger.
I think that they are both very important. 7768 was written with strong collaboration with central staff. The languaging, both of them have been hammered out extensively, and they are companion bills.
Great. Okay. All right. I hear a volunteer, and
I volunteered both of us, Martha.
I guess first draft is always the hardest. You know that very well. So thank you for that. All right, Anna, we want to respect your time. Anything else?
Well, I mean, there's tons happening in the state. A couple things that I would just make sure that you all are aware of, and there's been a couple articles that have come out, particularly acknowledging the tremendous shortage of school bus drivers, for example. And so there's some updates and streamlines that Governor Hochul has put in place and will be putting in place. So the state will be networking with county DMVs to try and streamline the process of getting people through the process of getting their CDL license. So, look out for that. That's coming down the pike. And also there's been some big movement on trying to move forward with our renewable energy infrastructure development. I wanted to just note, it's really important for those of us who are, big supporters of our unions and labor force, that the announcement with respect to the energy infrastructure, significant upgrades, the award contracts include or must include prevailing wage provisions for all laborers, workers, and mechanics performing construction activities. The project developers will be required to negotiate project labor agreements. I think that's really important to make sure that our unions are aware of that.
Okay.
I'm sure they already are, but I wanted to make you all aware of it.
All right, great. Deborah, last word.
Sorry, I'm just full of questions today. This streamlining of the CDL process, is that going to be focused on and limited to school bus drivers, or will that extend beyond the school bus driver situation? Because I know that TCAT's having a terrible time, and so are the other upstate transit systems.
Yep. Yeah, this initiative is focused on school buses, but I am very well aware of the shortage that we have for the public system. My hope is that there would be, a rollover, past the school bus system, because the outreach they're doing is extensive, into even finding people who have CDL license in the military. It is quite extensive. So I will make sure to bring that to their attention though.
Please and thank you.
Excellent. We did talk about this at budget last night.
Yep.
Mike Lane.
Yes, that's correct. And Anna, you'll remember the intern program that we had with Public Works with the city and the town of Ithaca and with our county highway department. And we found out last night that the interns were really not able to get their CDL licenses because they're moving from one to another. And apparently their experience doesn't tack on for the requirement for the state CDL license. So that might be an area that people should be looking at to see whether there could be some kind of tacking from one municipality to another, one job to another.
Yeah, actually, Mike, if you would be willing to write a letter outlining those details, I will bring it to the governor's attention. I think,
we can do that.
That would be really helpful. Just outlining the specific details, because of course their bird's eye view is, state level. This is a nuance that would really help at the local level. And it's, it wasn't an intentional exclusion, but not having all the information of what options are available for expansion of the program. So I think that this would be a great recommendation if you could outline it.
See what we can come up with. The other thing I wanted to ask about, and I came in late, so folks may have already talked about this, but in addition to Bell Station, Anna, I heard you speak about the Camp Barton, which is up in Seneca County, and you said that you and Assemblywoman from Binghamton,
Lapardo. We did talk about this.
We're talking about that. What about the assembly person from Seneca County there?
Yeah, I'm just starting the outreach. Just know that I found out about this. What day is today? It all feels like a total blur. This weekend. So, I'm just starting that process now of getting in touch with everybody and trying to unite around it.
That's good. We certainly would encourage that, and that's so important. And we've always worried about the Girl Scout camp as well.
Absolutely.
Which is in Tompkins County. And as far as Finger Lakes Land Trust is concerned, I understand, but their mission is slightly different than, say, parks for public access. And so I think you need to keep that in mind, and that not everything just has to be preserved in its existing state. We're trying to get more of the lake open for public access.
Yeah, so just I'll repeat what I said earlier today in the meeting, is that the ideal outcome is that it's purchased by the state for parkland, not conservation. It is already a park. It already has for all intents and purposes, it's a park. It has all the facilities. It has a dining hall. It has cabins. It has the underground infrastructure in place.
You're in touch with Fred Bond?
Fred Bond.
Bond, B-O-N-N, from the Finger Lakes Park System.
Yep, that is who my staff are setting up a meeting with.
Great.
Okay, I'd like to just, we did talk about Barton earlier, and it's really important.
I'm sorry to bring it up again, but I felt I needed to say something.
No, that's fine.
That's great. I just wanted to loop, thanks, Mike. I wanted to loop back to on the CDL. You'll remember the challenge TCAT has had in a test because there was no testing facility, no parking lot big enough, and whatever else TCAT needed for people to get the testing. I just want to connect the dots with the upstate air proposal that's been submitted as of September 15th, and that includes a facility that would include, be available for TCAT, for electric bus storage and charging. And related to this issue is a training space for CDL for drivers.
I missed, you cut out, Martha. What site?
We're hoping
At the airport.
Yep, okay, yep. We discussed that, started discussing that a couple years ago, yeah?
It's in the, but it's in the airport grant proposal that we've got out.
Yeah, but the airport,
Yep.
yeah, there's a new round of grant funding from the state, and Mike Hall, before he retired, and Roxanne have put together this proposal submitted by September 15th, and that includes, importantly, Yale training location, as well as classrooms that BOCES could use and TCAT could use. So, you know, if this is one of Hochul's babies now, and I'm really glad to hear it, maybe we can get you the copy of that grant, and maybe that can help sort of move the grant up the ranking.
Yep, absolutely. I do have a copy.
That is,
So yeah, I will review.
okay, fantastic. Thank you,
Wonderful.
Anna. Thank you
Great, everyone.
so much. Okay,
Nice to
great
see
to
you.
see you. Thanks a ton for everything.
Of
All right.
course.
Okay. All right, let's see if I can stay connected here, and at least you can hear me. Just to really swing fast through my other.
You're gone.
Other items I want to have under chair's report. Even my voice without the video.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Yeah. But every once in a while you kind of just stop. And I don't know if it's because you stop talking or you stop broadcasting.
All right, I'll just try to keep powering through. I don't know what's the problem. Ricky's not here doing homework anymore. I've been watching the Hochul administration. I talked about this with Charlie Krasansky, kind of what are the signals, what kind of things is she doing? She did sign the Less is More Act. If you notice, that was one of those we voted a resolution out some months ago supporting this act. This would make it so that parolees are not reincarcerated for simple things like missing a deadline or missing an appointment. So she signed that. Charlie also mentioned that she definitely, that Governor Cuomo didn't really, so that there might be ways that she'll be more supportive of SUNY than we've seen in the past. And he kind of thought she was probably finished making the big staff changes for the time being, and would probably keep sort of DEC Commissioner Sagos and the budget director moved a little while longer. It's probably pretty overwhelming to think about replacing the budget director as you're just beginning those kind of operations. We just ask Lisa Holmes about that. Charlie thought the Medicaid reconciliation issue could become a campaign issue. She could even say, like, to counties, like, if I get elected, I will take care of this in future budgets. So, you know, maybe.
Promises, Martha.
Yeah, I know. Quickly from NISAC, as you know, I was chair of the Climate Resiliency Committee. Patrick Ryan, who's the county executive for Ulster County, is going to be the new chair. And we discussed at our meeting last week the idea of making this a permanent, regular committee that then could pass resolutions that would become NISAC policy. So that's a direction we're going to try to take, try to encourage NISAC to follow. So I hope some of you will pick that one up. I have the whole resolutions packet, and I will. That, where'd it go? Lost again?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay. The resolution on, let me say, there's a whole package of resolutions. The board of directors passes their own first, and those are kind of given priority. Number one is calling on the state to increase and fully fund assigned council statutory pay levels. There was we haven't heard that much about that, but that's their first resolution. Their second resolution was about Medicaid reconciliation. And they have documented that other counties that have also done their FOIL requests, they think that there'll be well over $1 billion in federal funding owed to counties. So the FOIL requests are continuing on and adding to the record. Yeah. Resolution 3 is about providing more resources to local health departments to deal with mandates and pandemics. And finally, the fourth out of the board of directors is would suspend and end that the sales tax diversion for distressed health facilities. Now that was only going to last one more year anyway. So, but that is one of their resolutions. So then I've got the whole packet. It's also available online. You can read to your heart's content. So those are just some quickies for me on other issues. So it's already 9:21. I would like us to figure out exactly what we want on redistricting. I think we should weigh in. It's important and might make a difference if we actually express an opinion on these 3 maps. So how would you propose we proceed on that? Mike.
Well, I can remember back when the Assembly District was Tompkins County and a big chunk of Tioga County going down into Waverly. And our community of interest there was really almost nothing with that part of Tioga County. I think it was after the 1980 census that we were attached to the south half of Cortland, including the city. And there was always a lot more activity between the counties and the assembly person. Back then it was Marty Luster. And a lot of the programs that we were pushing, and particularly for things for the college, worked because we had the 2 counties working together on that. So I don't think that the idea of dividing this county and moving us up the lake does anything to help us with our relationship. Certainly it doesn't help us with Cortland, but it doesn't help us with this community of interest thing that has always been a part of what you should do with redistricting. I think that's in our charter for our own legislative districts, compactness and all those kinds of criteria. So I would like to see us make it known that we aren't happy with that change, not including Cortland. I'm thinking because that the assemblyman that had the north part of Cortland retired, that they saw this as an easy way to just fill in that previous district up there. And I don't think it helps.
Going back to the
Lost you.
3 sets of maps. I think it was only the assembly map. It was only the assembly map that divided us. Is that right? As I remember it.
I believe that's correct.
Okay, so we want to make, because we have 3 sets. So what are the statements we want to make? Everybody agree with that? For the assembly lines, we disagree and we want to be reattached to Cortland. That the main idea there? Any disagreement with that or additions to that?
No.
Okay. How do you want to look again at that map and see if we have a comment on the Senate districts? Or does anybody remember well enough to
I think the Senate districts in both versions keep us intact, don't they?
They keep us intact, but they assign us differently.
One assigns us to Binghamton and one assigns us north again.
So here's the Senate. This version assigns us to Binghamton. this version, you could say for one thing, it's less compact. For sure. It goes all the way like to Letchworth Park. It looks like.
If I could just mention, I think with the one attached to Binghamton, we'd see a lot more of whatever senator was elected from that district than we would if it was all the other counties involved.
Yeah, it looks like, I mean, that would obviously, it's a more dense populated area compared to that. I'm not even sure where the base of population would be in this one.
Well,
Well,
it's more Finger Lakes, but Mike's right. I mean, it's more densely populated and more compact if we go down to Binghamton. Now, I don't know if you would consider Binghamton a college town or not.
Sure, they got Binghamton University.
Yep.
Well, then maybe that's the one we should favor. Is that the Republican one or the Democratic one?
This is the Republican one. This is the Democrat.
Okay, so
I
we
don't-
should,
Doctor, like better than one or two. This is the Democratic flavor.
it is like the eye doctor.
It is, yeah, like one or two. So yes, SUNY Binghamton, was now called Binghamton University, is certainly a strong presence. We're in the Southern Tier Regional Economic Development Council with Broome and Tioga. And, and they always have their meetings at Binghamton University.
Yeah, but
So-
you want to be careful with that Southern Tier thing because of the congressional district.
That's true. So should I just ask then, are we, to try to build some consensus here, are we preferring this one? You like number one or number two?
I like number one. Henry,
Number
you've
one.
been really quiet.
Yeah, Henry, are you okay today? Henry and Mike Sigler, any comments? I'll take that as no
Not
comment.
really. I mean, yeah, I mean, the Binghamton one makes sense for the Senate. I mean, I don't know. I talked to Pam about it. I mean, it looks like we're going to be changing senators.
Yeah,
At least I think it will be. I think if you go either way with it, actually.
okay.
I mean, either we're going to get the Binghamton Senate seats basically open because Ashgar decided to retire. He's running for sheriff,
Uh-huh.
so that's going to be a wide open Senate seat. And then, or if you go the other direction, then Pam Helming will come down through our area, and that one just looks like a really long district. I mean,
Yeah,
so.
Yeah,
I
it's-
know she's talking, from Lake to the northern tier, basically. I mean,
yeah. I mean, I think Helming has really been attentive to us, especially for the sake that she's only got one town in our town. Nothing against her, but
No, she's been terrific.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But-
Really like working with her, but
We're not supposed to redistrict because, and we heard that from Anna too, because
Right,
of
I know.
the particular office holder or the home of a particular candidate or something like that. We're supposed to be looking at it from the best service to the population.
all right.
no, I mean,
So
I
let-
get that. I'm just saying that's a long district. I mean, gosh, that would take you 3 hours to drive across that district from end to end.
Yeah. Well, speaking of long districts, then we could look at this map.
Oh, Lord.
The congressional map that the Republicans put out, that's a 5-hour drive.
No. That's got to go.
Yeah.
We cannot tolerate that.
Well, it's my understanding you can't change it more than 10% or something like that. Isn't that
I think the number is 2%, but Mike, that is only if the commission produces a unified set of maps. If
okay?
they don't agree on a set of maps, then like it's all thrown up in the air. There's nothing they've recommended, so there's nothing to judge 2% against.
All right.
So, right. So, so this, all right. So there's, again, this is congressional and there's the Republican flavor and there is the Democratic flavor. And in both we are intact, which we like. The Democratic puts us with the urban area of Syracuse. It does not include Cortland. So there's that.
What's that little finger that sticks out?
It's Utica, I think.
No.
give me-
The little rectangular one down towards the bottom right.
All right.
That's weird. I don't know.
Yeah, what the heck is that?
And I can't zoom in on this.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
But I'd much rather see that.
It looks like it goes into Cortland.
Yeah, that's
looks
what I
like-
was wondering.
I wonder if it's Homer.
That's not the city of Cortland, is it? Maybe it is. I don't know. Henry, you're really good at these maps, and I tried to get them from the IRC website, and I got all sorts of, worrying, you're not allowed, this is an unsafe site. So I kind of freaked out and didn't download
I'm
anything.
just going to be pressed.
If you can find these maps that then, and so we can see the detail more, that would be wonderful. Is that something you can do?
I'll give it a shot.
Okay. I'm afraid the IRC website is anything but opaque, but transparent. It's incredibly frustrating. So.
Can I say this about the congressional districts? I think, as far as I'm concerned, we're still smarting from what happened when they redistricted us in 2010. And as you recall, what happened was the Senate and the Assembly could not agree. And so it was given to the courts to do the congressional seats. And the courts gave it to what's called a special master, who took no hearings and produced a map. I think they had a month or 6 weeks to do that, and they had a map like within a week or two of the appointment as a special master. So they had just sat down and done these mathematically on the maps and didn't pay any attention to things like community of interest and things. We had never ever been attached to the to that district. We have no community of interest with people, say, way out in Chautauqua.
No.
But we've always been connected with the central New York area, except when we were divided with Hinchy's district, but that was gerrymandered as well. But we always had like Sherwood Bollard. We had Mike Arcuri out of Utica, and that's always been a stronger connection in the past than going west.
I'm showing this map. This is the Republican flavor. Because the way I believe it, they said, let's do a Syracuse district, let's do a Rochester district, let's do a Buffalo district. And they put Chris Collins district kind of in the middle here. And they said,
And then screw everybody else.
they said, this is what's left over. 23 was the leftover district. And now this is spread even farther because it's losing population. All the upstate districts are losing population. All the lines have kind of shifted to the south. Yeah, Deborah?
Yeah, I was going to say with this communities of interest issue, do you remember when we had that big megillah about Spectrum cutting off our local news stations and putting us in the Syracuse broadcasting area?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so my question is, when you start talking about communities of interest, would it not be important where you get your news?
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And I think that we should add that to our list of arguments for why we like the Democratic flavor of the congressional district map, because I do think that that's important. You're getting your news from one source, and that tends to give everybody the same information.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the Democratic map actually doesn't do that. I mean, we're in the Syracuse DMA in Ithaca, so we would get our news from Syracuse. But then
Yeah, but
the
that-
Democratic map also goes over to Utica, and Utica is its own television market. So you're making it almost twice as expensive to run in that district as you would in the other.
But if you want to look at overlapping media markets, Mike, you've got Rochester and Syracuse for this other district. You know, I'm not concerned about everybody else. I'm just concerned about us. And a lot of the people in that district, except when you start trending into that little finger at the top right, are in the Syracuse broadcasting area.
So one thing I will say is, yeah, when you go all the way, if we're just comparing the Republican versus Democratic, not like how might you adjust either of those, the going all the way out to Western New York puts that district in like 3 to 4 distinct different media markets. It's a real bear.
Buffalo, Rochester, Binghamton.
Yeah. So this is that's a good point. Maybe we can look at that as well. We gotta go and do the minutes approvals. Henry already left. Let's dig into this some more so we can prepare some cogent arguments for these 3 sets of maps and put forward, you know, like a resolution for the legislature, and then that can become the basis for testimony at a public hearing. And does that seem like a reasonable thing to do?
I just can't do it today. I got to eat lunch, get dressed, and get myself out to TC3 by.
Well, Deborah, you can't do it today. Come on.
Nope.
All right. No, this is going to take a little time to really kind of look at these 3 sets. We hadn't been thinking about 3 different flavors, but they're all a little bit different. We should take time and do a good job on that.
So let's do the minutes because I got to go.
Can I get a motion on July 13th minutes? Moved by Deborah, seconded by Mike Lane. Any
Up by the
comments?
cat.
And the cat, Mike Lane and the cat. And any comments or suggestions or changes? All right, I'll call a vote. Mike Lane,
Yes.
Mike Sigler,
Yes.
Deborah,
Yes.
and I'm a yes, so that is unanimous. Thank you so very much. Final word, any committee members' reports? I know we're racing to the deadline here. Deb, you got anything that you want to report out?
No, ma'am.
All right, anybody else? Okay, thank you all very much. Sorry about my internet. We are adjourned.
Thank you,
See you
Martha.
tonight.
See you tonight. Bye-bye. Thanks, everybody.